and the Minister will be sharing with the South Africans. And it's over to you, Minister.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the media, community, to South Africans. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the cabinet decision which sat yesterday. The statement reads as follows: on the vaccination against the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, Cabinet was pleased that over 260,000 people vaccinated during the second Vuma vaccination weekend held countrywide from the 12th to the 14th November 2021. We must remember that the virus has not been eradicated, and vaccination protects us from serious illness, hospitalization, or death. Vaccination is free to all people of South Africa, and anyone aged 12 years and older is encouraged now to vaccinate. And let us vaccinate to ensure a safe and a joyful festive season with our families and friends. On the district development model, Cabinet welcomed the visit by the President to the Ugu districts in KwaZulu-Natal on Friday, 12 November 2021, which highlighted the development of the eastern seaboard that encompasses 600 kilometers of the coastal line between KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Seaboard Development is a flagship project of the DDM, which sets out to build inclusive local economies to overcome the legacy of apartheid special planning. The project aims to harness the potential of the vast natural endowments of the area for economic growth. On the medium-term budget policy statement, Cabinet fully supported the financial path set out in the MTBBS, presented by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana in Parliament, Cape Town on Thursday, 11 November 2021, which sends a strong message of our commitment to prudent fiscal discipline. As part of our social commitments, 60% of our budget was allocated to housing development, free basic services, employment program, health, education, and social grants. The initiatives outlined in the MTBBS demonstrate that government has a clear plan to guide the economy through the turmoil created by the COVID-19 pandemic and to place our nation on a long-term growth path. On the Intra-Africa Trade Fair 2021, the successful IETF 2021 held at Inkosi Albert Lutuli International Convention Center in Durban from the 15th and 21 November 2021 has helped deepen cooperation and boost intra-Africa trade and investment. The IETF brought together business leaders to share trade, investment, market information, and broad investment opportunity on the continent. South African goods and services were also profiled, marketed to build networks and partnership to increase export into the continent. On the household safety, Cabinet expressed concern about the safety of children following recent sporadic cases of child kidnappings in different parts of the country. During the upcoming festive season, parents and caregivers must be extra vigilant regarding the safety and whereabouts of children in their care. Parents and caregivers are urged to discuss general safety precautions with children in their care, including on COVID-19 risks and protocols. We also urge parents and caregivers to consider which activities their children, especially the youth, can safely participate in. Events such as matric rage parties, matric farewell after parties are potential COVID-19 super spreaders. Large gatherings, especially those which involve the consumption of alcohol, are a major risk and undermine our efforts to contain the spread of the virus. On the formation of local government coalitions, Cabinet thanked all eligible voters who cast their vote in the 2021 local government elections held on Monday, the 1st November 2021, to determine who should govern at local government. It also noted the coalition arrangements recently announced on these hung municipalities where there was no outright winner. Cabinet congratulated all newly elected mayors and councillors and wished them success in their important task of providing municipal services to all communities irrespective of their political affiliation. It also applauded political parties for the decorous manner in which they conducted themselves during the local government elections and coalition negotiations. It's a process that seems to have gone peacefully, in our view. On the social cohesion, Cabinet noted the rising xenophobic sentiments and stereotypes in some parts of the country against foreign nationals. The onslaught on COVID-19 has affected all people in South Africa, and the negative sentiments being perpetuated by a handful of people do not reflect the true state of cordial relations between foreigners living and working within our communities and our citizens. Cabinet called on all communities to be vigilant and avoid being coerced into hating other fellow human beings. It called on everyone to act responsibly and within bounds of the law, report any act of lawlessness such as intimidation and public violence to law enforcement agencies. On the Cabinet decisions pertaining to the outcomes of the 26th session of the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, commonly referred to as COP26, Cabinet was briefed by the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Ms. Barbara Christie, on the outcomes of the 26th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change held in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom, from the 31st October to 13 November 2021. South Africa's participation was anchored on its commitment to Paris Agreement on Climate Change of 2015 to reduce greenhouse gas emission and to build climate resilience of its society and economy. The country's move to renewable energy hold many benefits for both our environment and the economy. Cabinet welcomed the historic Just Transition Partnership established by South Africa with France, Germany, the UK, the United States and the European Union, which was announced at COP26. Cabinet acknowledged the offer of the partnership to mobilize 131 billion over the next 3 to 5 years to support South Africa's just transition plans. The offer is in line with the commitment under the Paris Agreement by the developed countries to support developing countries' climate actions, including those of South Africa. An interministerial committee chaired by the President will coordinate further work on the country's just transition plan and on the financial offers made to South Africa in the context of partnership. Cabinet further mandated that a financial team consisting of National Treasury, Industrial Development Corporation, Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, ESCOM and other finance experts to be appointed by government to consider the technical aspects of the partnership and offer. Extension of the national state of disaster In line with the terms of Section 27, subsection 5, paragraph C of the Disaster Management Act 2002, Cabinet approved the extension of the national state of disaster to 15 December 2021. These measures continue to assist in the country's fight to stop the spread of COVID-19. On the Disability Rights Awareness Month, Cabinet approved the concept approach to this year's commemoration of Disability Rights Awareness Month, which is commemorated annually from the 3rd November to 3rd December. The theme for 2021 is, open quote, the year of Charlotte Maxeke, create and realize an inclusive society upholding rights of persons with disabilities, close quotes. The campaign focuses on raising awareness on persons with disabilities in our society and also celebrates the progress we have made as a country to provide space for the active participation of people with disabilities in our drive for economic growth. The Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, Ms. Maite Nkwana Mashabane, will soon unpack the weekly thematized programs. South Africa ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. On the National Child's Rights Status Report, Cabinet approved the publication of the annual National Rights Status Report. It is the first comprehensive status of the child report for the country that has been developed using the country's National Plan of Action for Children 2019 to 2024. The report outlines progress on the implementation of legislation and policies that are meant to protect and promote the rights of children as provided for in the Bill of Rights. State Party report to the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Cabinet approved South Africa's State Party report to be submitted to the SLWC of African Union. This is the third report that South Africa is submitting to this very organization, in line with the country being the signatory to AU obligations on the welfare and protection of children in the continent. The current report, which is due to be tabled in March 2022, responds also to the observations made by this very well body in our 2016 report. On the special Zimbabwean exemption permit, Cabinet considered the March talk about Zimbabwean special permit. Cabinet noted that in recent days, fake news was spreading on these permits. The first Zimbabwean special dispensation started in 2009 and was called the Dispensation for Zimbabweans Permit. It provided for the documentation of qualifying Zimbabweans for a 5-year period. In 2014, the dispensation was extended by 3 years and referred as the Zimbabwean Special Permit. The current Zimbabwean exemption permit was initiated in 2017 and comes to an end on the 31st December 2021. Following its deliberations, Cabinet decided to no longer issue extension to the Zimbabweans and special dispensations. However, Cabinet decided on a 12-month grace period at the expiry of the current Zimbabwe exemption permit. During this period, holders of this permit should apply for other permits appropriate to their particular status or situation. At the expiry of this 12-month period, those who are not successful will have to depart the Republic or be deported. On the reconfiguration of South African electoral system to include independent candidates, Cabinet approved that a report of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on Electoral System Reforms be submitted to Parliament. The electoral system reforms were initiated after the Constitutional Court judgment declared in 2020 that the Electoral Act 1998 was unconstitutional, as it only provided for the elections of members of National Assembly and provincial legislature to be done through political parties. The Ministerial Advice Committee report presents policy options that can remedy the unconstitutional aspects of the Electoral Act of 1998. On the sectoral emissions targets, Cabinet approved the sets, as short as the acronym refers, framework in line with South Africa's implementation of the Paris Agreement, signed by the Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change in 2015. The framework will guide the lead government department's approach in coordinating the process towards allocating and implementing sector emissions targets to sister departments. The national department's planning instruments or policies and measures seek to mitigate emissions from the sector in line with the sectoral emissions target. Sectoral emissions targets are critical for implementing sectoral emissions targets as articulated in the framework. They will be defined and allocated as soon as the climate change bill becomes law. These will be determined for 3 rolling 5-year periods and reviewed every 5 years. On the company-level carbon budgets, Cabinet approved the company-level carbon budget allocation methodology approach for implementation. A mandatory carbon budget system targeting high-emission companies will be implemented in 2023. The carbon budget system will compel the high-emitting companies to adopt assigned amounts of greenhouse gas emissions as 5-year commitment allocations. The carbon budget allocation methodology sets out the scope of mandatory carbon budget implementation and details operational frameworks to be used to calculate and allocate company-level carbon budgets for the first mandatory phase and beyond. On the rationalization of magisterial districts, Cabinet welcomed the finalization of rationalizations of the remaining 4 provinces, which is Eastern Cape, Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, and Western Cape, magisterial districts. The process, which gives effect to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa of 1996, commenced in 2014 with magisterial districts of Gauteng and Northwest being rationalized. Limpopo and Mpumalanga were finalized in 2016 and Northern Cape was finalized in 2018. Prior to 1994, the country's magisterial districts were determined along racial lines, perpetuating inferior judicial services to black people living in the defunct homelands, self-governing states, and townships. The proposed reconfigured courts' jurisdiction boundaries ensure equal access to the justice system by all South Africans. The process to finally come up with these boundaries was an all-inclusive process that included the magistracy, South African Police Service, National Prosecuting Authority, Legal Aid Board, Municipal Demarcation Board, and all relevant stakeholders in the respective provinces. On the state litigation management, mediation, and state legal representation policies, Cabinet approved 3 policies pertaining to the management of state litigation, mediation, and state legal representation. These policies seek to promote a professionally empowering and cost-effective management of state litigation cases. The policies provide general principles to be observed and the approach to adopt by the Office of the State Attorney when dealing with the state litigation matters. Also, the policies establish uniform procedures and provide a framework to assist the Office of the State Attorney. The mediation policy also introduces alternative interventions on cases that can be resolved at less costly court process. These approved policies will operate as transitional mechanism whilst the State Attorney Act amendment is being reviewed. On the bills, the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, Cabinet approved the submission to Parliament of the Basic Law of Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. The bill amends the South African Schools Act of 1996, Act 84 of 1996, and the Employment of Educators Act 1998 of Act 76. The proposed amendments seek to strengthen the system of learning in education as envisaged in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa of 1996. The amendments, amongst others, give effect to the universal access to the 2 years of early childhood development. The bill also enforces accountability within schools' governing bodies and clarifies admission, language, and code of conduct policies in schools. The proposed amendments will improve access to education for all learners across the country. The bill has gone through public consultation and also with all relevant stakeholders. On the Final Sector Levies Bill of 2021, Cabinet approved the submission of the Financial Sector Levies Bill of 2021 to Parliament. The bill gives effect to the financial sector regulation. The bill imposes levies on the financial sector to be used for funding the operations and functioning of the financial sector bodies established in terms of Financial Sector Regulations Act of 2017. It also imposes a compulsory deposit insurance premium on registered members of the corporation to provide a safety net for the depositors in the event of the bank failure. The bill also amends the Pensions Fund Act of 1956, also the Banks Act of 1990, Mutual Banks Act of 1993, and the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Service Act of 2002, and aligns them with the FSR Act of 2017 in respect of the financial sector bodies. On the Electoral Amendment Bill, Cabinet approved the much-awaited Electoral Amendment Bill for submission to Parliament. The bill amends the Electoral Act of 1998 to make provisions for the election of independent candidates to the National Assembly and provincial legislatures. In June 2020, the Constitutional Court ordered Parliament to remedy the defect in the current Electoral Act of 1998 to ensure independent candidates can stand for elections to National Assembly and provincial legislatures. Cabinet further approved the submission of the Ministerial Advisory Council report that set out options to remedy the aspects of the Electoral Act that were found to be unconstitutional. On the upcoming event, 16 Days of Activism for Non-Violence Against Women and Children 2021, Cabinet approved the conceptual approach to 16 Days of Activism for No Violence Against Women and Children campaign. The public awareness campaign will be marked under the theme, open quote, the year of Charlotte Manya Maxeke, 16 Days of Activism, moving from awareness to accountability, close quotes. The campaign forms part of the government's comprehensive 365 Days of Activism for awareness of advocacy work on stopping violence against women and children. Cabinet urges all of us to condemn and commit to stop the violation of women and children in the country. The recent crime statistics on gender-based violence and femicide released by the Ministry of Police should concern all peace-loving and law-abiding South Africans. Cabinet calls on all South Africans to work together to ensure that the campaign takes the country closer to achieving the right of safety of women and children. Minister Nkwana Mashabane will today, 25th November, launch the start of this campaign. Messages of congratulations. Cabinet extended its congratulations and well wishes to Mr. Damon Galgut, the author who won the prestigious 2021 Booker Prize for his novel, The Promise, and the third South African to win this type of a prize. Of course now, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies for winning the inaugural Confederation of African Football Women Champions League held in Cairo, Egypt, Their groundbreaking achievement is sure to spur on the further development of women's football in South Africa. On the condolences, Cabinet expressed condolences to the family and friends of the following: Mr. F. W. de Klerk, who passed on at 85, the former pre-democracy president of South Africa, who also served as deputy president in the government of national unity in 1994. He shared the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 with former President Nelson Mandela for their work for peaceful termination of the apartheid regime and for laying the foundations for new democratic South Africa. Mr. Wilbur Smith, 88, the acclaimed international author who sold more than 140 million books. He was a celebrated writer and a storyteller who ranks amongst our nation's literary giants. Mr. Tabby Reddy, the former Chief Executive Officer of the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee, who steadfastly worked for betterment of sport in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a list of appointments which I don't intend to read. You will read for yourself as the copy is circulated. Thank you very much for giving us this audience. Okay.
Thank you very much, Minister. We will then entertain questions. Can we start with you?
Thank you, DG. The first question is from Sunil Naidu, which is a freelance journalist. The question is, the first one is, did Cabinet discuss the decision by the Ministry of Arts and Culture and the South African government as a whole to withdraw support for Miss South Africa participating at this year's Miss Universe competition, and does it have any updates on the discussions in this regard? The second question is, a number of current and former members of Cabinet have testified at the SAHRC inquiry into the July unrest. Can Minister clarify if the President has any intention to or plan to testify on government's response to the riots? The third question is, can the Minister confirm if the President offered the late apartheid President, Mr. F.W. de Klerk, a state funeral as per the current legislation, or did the family decline this? And then we have a few questions from Asiri Ndlovu from Capital Life Radio. Thanks, Minister, for the update. I hear you were talking about COVID-19 potential spreader events. I was hoping Cabinet will acknowledge that the election campaigns led by the President and all parties were also super spreader events where no masks were worn in all those events. The election day itself looked much organized when it comes to precautionary measures, though. So upon encouraging people to go to vaccinate, don't you think that as Cabinet you should acknowledge that in order for everyone to take vaccination or avoiding crowds message seriously? I don't know, you can educate us if COVID-19 is immune to political gatherings. And then we have a question from Paul Ficchiato from Bloomberg. And the question is, does the carbon budget methodology either exempt or accommodate ESCOM, and if so, in what way? Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela, do you want to, or should I allow Minister to speak, to respond?
Allow Minister to respond.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
There are too many questions.
Yeah, like,
Thank you very much, Ms. Naidu, asking a question which is not very easy, but although answer is not very difficult. The Cabinet didn't necessarily discuss the issue of Miss SA attending Israel. I guess the reason is that our position is clear in as far as Israel is concerned, that we have agreed at some stage that we actually stop cooperating in a lot of various levels, even cultural. Therefore, this event would have fallen in that category. Therefore, I think the assumption of the cabinet was that the position is clear, but we have not been able to check on the updating as far as that matter is concerned. On the hearings that are taking place now around the violence, I'm not able to make an undertaking, but I have no doubt our president has demonstrated all the time that he's a Democrat and he respects South African laws and the general principles that are underlying that law. I have no doubt if the president would be required to do so, I have no doubt the president will. On the funeral of the Mr. de Klerk, may I take this opportunity to inform South Africans that the family opted for a family event in as far as this aspect is concerned. We are also looking at a possibility of a commemoration whose details I cannot be able to speak about, and I have no doubt even that one is a matter that will have to be consulted with them. On COVID-19, who was asking this question?
Same question.
Asking whether political gatherings are immune to spread. No, they are not. They are not, and I think I am heartened by the fact that they think on the election day there was a decent attempt to actually chew people in a manner that is responsive in regard to the type of infection. I just want also to acknowledge that not all our campaigns followed COVID-19 principles. There have been a number of disturbing instances, which I think going forward, it has a lot of lessons we should learn from that. On the carbon budget, ESCOM is not exempted. All companies are actually supposed to be affected by the allocation of responsibility in as far as carbon emissions management towards meeting the national targets is concerned. Thanks. Maybe I just forgot to say, just take advantage of the fact that that lady spoke about COVID-19, that South African must have seen in the past 3 days or 4 days that infections have been have been rising. I think 2 alternate days it was about 800, today it was 1,000, and the positivity rate is also 3+. It indicates that there's no way out of vaccination, there's no way out of social distancing and all other measures. Of course, we expect the Department of Health to actually update us on the latest development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think we'll take the House questions.
Thank you, Commander Kote from ENC. Now, Minister, that you have touched on the issue of COVID-19 and the rising infections. Of course, the Command Council on Coronavirus will have to meet based on that update from the Department of Health. But did Cabinet discuss a possibility of a lockdown should there be a fourth wave? What is the position there, bearing in mind that infections are rising? But also, number two, let's talk about the financial team that will be put together in relation to an offer of 131 billion rand that was made by richer nations when it comes to financing South Africa's just transition. In terms of the time frames and deadline, when are we expecting a detailed report as to what will happen to that offer? My understanding is that the offer is on the table. Now the technical team comprising of national treasury will have to come together and see what is in the best interest of South Africa and advise government what to do next. So how many months from now are we likely to have a decision on that one? And also on the issue of Zimbabwe exemption permits, has the decision been formally communicated to the Zimbabwean authorities? Are you not worried about a possibility of tension and chaos should there come a period whereby people will have to be deported? Did Cabinet discuss the latest installment of load shedding by ESCOM? Thank you very much.
I think we'll take just one round, Minister, from Nongeba, if there are any, and this will be your last round. There's nothing. Okay, so over to you, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Spomandla. It's difficult to say when will the nation know with regard to what are we intending to do with this money. Up front, there's an intention to make use of it, but however, as and when and what amount, it will depend on the team that the cabinet is going to combine, is put together, of the various technicalities, expertise, and so on. Because we are also very careful of accessing this money in a manner not unique to our situation in South Africa. But I can comfortably say when that team comes together with all those relevant skills, it will advise, and at any given point in time, they will announce. On the Zimbabwean, all I know, this decision has been taken of giving this thing as it comes to an end, to give a 12-month grace to allow people to organize themselves in a manner that meets the legal requirements of this country. As we have already said there, that if indeed this 12 months ends and they do not conduct themselves in line with the legal requirements of the country, the laws of the country are going to kick in. We hope they will take a positive advantage of this and cooperate. Whether the country has been informed or not, normally we do actually engage this country about this, but on the exact knowledge whether this has been done, I don't want to make a commitment to that, but all I can assure that this decision has been taken. On the load shedding, it's a I don't know what to call it. It's a Beirut matter. I don't know. There used to be stories that, but in that way, I say Beirut. We didn't actually discuss load shedding, as far as I remember. But all what we are monitoring is interventions that are taking place, and some of the discussions we're having with the departments affected are ongoing. Trying to find a long-term, what to call, solution. One of the biggest challenges here is that we need to, not too long, to be in a position to say, understanding this problem, how long should people wait for its solution? It's a matter that you don't want to be simplistic about. A lot of relevant people come in and so on. And one of the things we're trying to make sure we do is to communicate a coherent message on the matter. That's the little I can say now about it.
Thank you very much. I think we have come to the end of the, what? There's one more, Minister. Can we take?
No, I'm also reminding the Minister there was a question on COVID-19 and
Yes.
fourth wave and
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah. Okay, let's take that one, and then Minister, yes, I did note she forgot to mention that the lockdown prospects.
Oh, okay.
Let's take this question, and then you can come for both of them.
Spinele Ludla from Business Report is asking, is there a reason for the exclusion of the Department of Minerals and Energy from the financial team to be appointed to consider the technical aspects of the partnership,
Exclusion of?
the
Mineral.
Department of Minerals and Energy.
Mineral. Yeah.
Okay. So the question is there a reason for the exclusion of the Department of Minerals and Energy from the financial team to be appointed to consider the technical aspects of the partnership and the 131 billion offer for just transition? Is this in light of the DMR being responsible for coal mining and having somewhat of a different view on this financial offer?
Okay, thank you.
Maybe what we should correct, this is not a financial team. It's a technical team mainly, comprising of financial people and all other relevant expertise. So you cannot imagine that mining and the other department that you have referred to being excluded to that. I think we need to, all the relevant skills are going to be put in this team. There's one thing I also want to put to bed. What did they say the Minister of Minerals is against? They said something there?
Is against
This money. You know, that's not true. The cabinet, in as far as accepting this offer is concerned, was unanimous yesterday. Fortunately, I had an opportunity even to engage the Minister of Minerals, even outside this. He is in line with this. Everyone else's concern is that there is a risk of pushing developing countries to run ahead of themselves and actually act in a manner that is detrimental to the vulnerable and the weak. The approach is that when we talk just transition, is to make sure that as we move from high carbon emission to low carbon emission, we move in a manner that makes sure that no South African falls through the cracks because of the reckless way in which we do it. And all of us, in as far as that principle is concerned, we're in unison. Thanks. Oh, hey, it's like I'm running away from this load shedding. Lockdown, yes. We have always said, Spamandla, whenever the NCCC meets, you take decisions consistent with that situation. And I want to repeat that. We wish there must never be a possibility of locking down this country again. We're still dealing with the damage of 2020 and a damage of a lockdown without which the worst could have happened. Our biggest prayer is that we hope that South Africans will make sure that they stick to the measures of social distance, all those protocols, go and vaccinate, so that we minimize and actually render zero the possibilities of a lockdown. But the principle is, at any given point in time, this president will lead this country towards the measures that will be relevant depending on the development of that given time. I hope it tries to answer that.
I think I'm not going to take any more questions. I think we can thank the minister and we can adjourn. Thank you very much for the media. Thanks.